months after President Trump announced his plan to shake up the global economy on his self-styled Liberation Day, he's imposed new tariffs on dozens of countries which haven't reached a trade deal with the US. Global stocks have dropped in the last 30 minutes. The US stock market has opened lower following falls in Europe and Asia as well. The tariffs, in other words, taxes on goods exported to the US, are due to come into effect in 7 days, with the exception of some Canadian goods, where tariffs of 25 to 30% start immediately. Brazil initially thought it had got off lightly with a 10% tariff. It's now been raised to 50%, and India has been hit with a tariff of 25%. Some of the steepest new levies are being imposed on countries like Switzerland, Laos and Syria. Other trading partners fare better, with 15% tariffs on exports from the European Union, Japan and South Korea. They are among the few who haven't managed to strike deals with Washington. The UK has emerged relatively unscathed with base tariffs of 10%. And China isn't included in the announcement today. Their 90-day pause is set to expire on the 12th of August. So what impact will the president's plan to shake up the global economy with tariffs on goods from virtually all America's trading partners actually have? Over the next few hours on the programme, we're going to explore with our correspondents around the world. And we begin this hour with Michelle Fleury in New York, Davina Gupta in Delhi and Ione Wells in Sao Paulo. Michelle, let's go to you first. Well, Donald Trump's been talking for a while, hasn't he, about a new golden age for America, boosting domestic manufacturing and growth. But this plunge in the New York stock market show that the plan comes with some risks as well, doesn't it?
Look, I think Donald Trump was always clear. He feels that the global trade system is unfair and he wanted to do something about it. His favourite tool, as we know, is that word in the dictionary he says he loves, tariffs, and he rolled that out today. Now, the reaction here on Wall Street from investors, well, there is a degree of shock. Shock in part because of the 35% tariffs going on America's neighbours in the north, Canada, but also there was that extension for Mexico, another 90 days to try and secure some form of a trade deal. There was also more shocking news in terms of countries like Switzerland. What is happening is that investors are trying to grapple with what this means for companies, for the US economy, for consumers. And we're already starting to see evidence of the pain that it is causing. The latest job figures this morning showed a sharp drop in the number of people hired last month in America, 73,000. That was far below economists' expectation. There were also downward revisions for the prior 2 months. All of this sends the signals that companies who are looking for certainty aren't finding it, and so they're holding off taking on new employees. That is sort of one of the effects that we're beginning to see from tariffs. The other area that economists look at is that because this is seen as a tax effectively on foreign goods entering the United States, one that many people think ultimately will be paid for by consumers, people are waiting to see what this will do for inflation. Will it push up prices? That piece we have not yet seen, and that is something that economists are continuing to keep an eye out for.
Michelle, I'll come back to you in a minute, but let's bring in Davina Gupta in Delhi. Davina, what types of Indian products will be affected by these tariffs, and what are the prospects for working out a deal? It hasn't happened yet, but will it happen?
Well, that's, one would say, a billion-dollar question, isn't it? But when it comes to what type of products that are going to be affected, we're talking about labor-intensive sectors in India, including textile, leather, gems and stones. So these are sectors that support tens of thousands of jobs. And when I've been speaking to exporters who are involved in these sectors, they say they are completely uncertain. Their order book right now is looking empty because they don't know what kind of contract they can get into, and they can't absorb this kind of additional tariffs because one is not even clear whether it's going to be 25% or more than that, because the US is not happy with India's ties with Russia. So when it comes to negotiating a way forward, India has taken two-pronged approach. The first one is it's saying that one flashpoint in these negotiations has been India's agriculture sector, which has high tariffs to protect its domestic producers. So it said that it won't negotiate any kind of open openness there for now because it doesn't want American goods, especially genetically modified goods, to come and take away businesses from these small producers. The second approach has been more diplomatic because India has said its ties with Russia are crucial. Russia is India's largest oil supplier, and it needs that to keep its energy prices in check. So it's trying to do that balancing act with the US, saying India's national interests are separate, its energy interests are separate, and our relationship with the US is something which is on the table. We can negotiate it. India is a large market for many US companies, from Apple to Meta to Tesla. So let's talk about that, and let's talk about a way forward from here, which no one knows when it could happen. But in the coming few weeks, we are expecting a US delegation to come here and see whether these talks can be ironed out, these differences can be ironed out.
Okay, Davina, thank you. So 25% tariffs on goods exported to the US from India. If we look at Brazil, it is a whopping 50%. We had some pictures, live pictures a moment ago. I think we can possibly bring those in, of protests in Sao Paulo. People out there on the streets protesting against these massive 50% tariffs. And let's bring in our correspondent, Ione Wells, who's in Sao Paulo for us. So I understand, Ione, the Brazilian government is getting ready to announce measures as part of contingency plans it's been working on to try to support businesses with these huge tariffs. What more detail do we have on that? And presumably, in terms of public sentiment, as we're seeing from these protests, a lot of people feeling really, really nervous.
Yeah, that's right. There is a lot of anger here in Brazil as a result of these tariffs, largely because these tariffs aren't economic, they are political. Donald Trump in July falsely claimed that the US had a trade deficit with Brazil. In fact, it's the opposite. The US runs a multi-million-dollar trade surplus with Brazil, meaning it sells more to Brazil than it buys from Brazil. And yet it has been hit with these 50% tariffs, although some products are exempt. And the reason for that is that Donald Trump has sort of framed these tariffs as retaliation for the trial of his ally, the former right-wing president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, who's currently about to face trial on allegations he instigated a coup after losing the last election, something that Donald Trump has called a witch hunt, and which Bolsonaro denies. The allegations include even a plot to kill the current president, Lula da Silva. Now, the US has announced 50% tariffs, including for coffee, which is, as you can see behind me, you see coffee plants everywhere in the state of Sao Paulo. It's one of Brazil's main exports. Brazil is the largest producer of coffee in the world, and the US buys about a third of its coffee from Brazil. So for producers here, for exporters here, that is going to be a big hit for them, but also going to be a big hit for US consumers too. The expectation is from exporters I've spoken to here that prices will potentially have to go up there, as well as businesses here having to absorb some of that extra cost. There is sort of hope about what contingency measures could be announced to try and support businesses at this time. Although in terms of the reasons for these tariffs, the political reasons for these tariffs, there is no sign at all that the Brazilian government is planning to somehow sort of intervene in judicial proceedings. The Brazilian president, Lula da Silva, has stressed that the judiciary is independent. He has slammed what he's described as foreign interference from the US government. And so far, there is no sign of negotiations taking place. In fact, relations remain icy between the two presidents. President Lula, President Trump have never even so far exchanged a phone call. The real hope from exporters, though, in the meantime, is that some kind of deal could be reached, because they are fearful about the impact of this. One interesting thing I would add as well, Jair Bolsonaro and his allies hope that these tariffs will put pressure on his criminal proceedings at the moment. However, some analysts here in Brazil actually think that could backfire, and that's partly because a lot of agriculture producers, for example, some of whom may well support Jair Bolsonaro or his causes, or may have done in the past, some of them will be hit pretty badly by these tariffs. And so, especially with the sort of public anger that we're seeing today, there is a chance that this will certainly turn more people against Bolsonaro than perhaps turn to support him.
Okay, Ione, thank you very much. Ione Wells there in Sao Paulo, Davina Gupta in Delhi, and Michelle Fleury in New York. Thanks to you all. Okay, let's talk now to US-based business owner Chitra Agrawal, because owners there have been raising concerns about the impact of these wide-ranging tariffs on their businesses. Chitra is a co-founder of Brooklyn Deli. Thank you so much for joining us on BBC News. And we were just in Delhi with our correspondent a little while ago, and I know that you import spices from India, which you simply can't source in the US. So take us through the impact that tariffs are going to have on your business.
Thanks for having me, Alita. At Brooklyn Deli, we're making authentic Indian condiments and sauces. And so we really need these specialty ingredients like cumin, chili, coconut that are just not grown domestically. So we're getting hit on a lot of levels, not just ingredients too, but we also are importing glass and lids from Taiwan and China. So we are really backed up against a wall right now. And, we're a bootstrapped company. We have not been able to buy in bulk before this news has hit. So it's going to impact us greatly.
So how much of these additional costs might you be able to absorb? How much will have to be passed on to your customers?
Right now, we're just trying to figure out what exactly the impact is, because for India, for instance, it's 25%, but they're saying that there's going to be penalties for sourcing oil and weapons from Russia. So we are kind of in a limbo state right now, trying to figure out if there are alternatives, but in actuality, there's probably not.
So when President Trump talks about his plan boosting US growth, a golden age for America, what do you make of that comment?
Well, we are already producing our jarred products in the US, so we're supporting factory workers here. So it's not that we can bring our our production back to America because it's already here. And the other piece of it is that, the glass and the lids that we source from China and Taiwan, even with the tariffs, it's more expensive to produce those materials in the US.
If these tariffs hadn't been introduced, what sort of plans would you have been making for your business in the next, say, 6 months to 12 months that you are now not making?
Well, we would have been launching new products. We have a lot of product innovation in the pipeline, but right now, if I can't pinpoint my cost for my current products, I just don't feel comfortable putting out new products.
And very briefly, would it impact your employees, the number of employees you have?
Definitely. So right now we have a hiring freeze. We're not bringing in any new employees, and I'm just trying to hold on to my team as best I can, but it's uncertain.
Okay, Chitra, really interesting to hear the real world impacts of these tariffs. Chitra Agrawal there, co-founder of US business Brooklyn Deli.